council to order. Again, we are meeting via Zoom in accordance with the emergency orders due to COVID-19 state of emergency declaration here in Kentucky. Go ahead and get started under bids and contracts and proposals. The first one we have is the service request for South Fork Estates. And I would call on Jessica Filiatro, our city engineer, to walk us through these.
Sure. This is a request for service for just a very short stub off of an existing subdivision in the county called South Fork Estates. Mr. Gary has purchased some land that adjoins near the river that street, and he is proposing, I think he had 3 lots. He's converting one of the lots into a proposed future right of way, and is just going to extend the water main along that proposed future street, stopping at this time. There's really no new services and no new lots served, but he's going to go ahead and get this piece done in preparing for that future development that he's planning. So this is just a really small water main extension that he's looking to do in California.
All right. Anyone have any questions of Jessica on this particular one? If not, then I'd ask for a motion to approve the service request by South Fork Estates for a water main extension.
So moved, Mayor.
It's a motion by Councilman Hibbs, or was that Jones?
Jones.
All right, sorry. Y'all might have to start calling your names out. Sometimes my hearing's not so good. My hearing's not so good, and the iPad's a little slow. All right, motion by Councilman Jones. We got a second by Councilman Williams. Any other discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Okay, Jessica, you want to do the request, excuse me, from Nelson County Fiscal Court on their landfill leachate?
Yes, the Nelson County landfill is currently having design plans and getting their information to do a major expansion at the landfill. And with that landfill expansion, that's requiring additional leachate and an upgrade to, they have a 6-inch leachate line currently that's needing to be upsized to an 8. And they're going to be making some improvements to the pump station and so forth that sends that flow to the city of Bardstown. Previously, we had accepted their existing capacity or max capacity of 200 gallons a minute. This is a request to take that to 400 gallons a minute. So they have provided hydraulic calculations and so forth, and that is stemming for their need to upgrade to an 8. And we have done the math, and we can handle this additional flow provided that all of that flow is directed to the Riley wastewater treatment plant. And the best way to do that is also require connection from the 8-inch line where the leachate currently ties in to the 14-inch line that can take it to either plant, but that's only the 14. And the 8 crosses over the existing 24-inch line that came after that when the Jerry Riley plant was built. So we have the ability to treat this additional flow at the Riley plant, but we will need them to make that connection from that leachate line 8-inch to the 24 as part of this project. They will also be coming to us and requesting from the city with a part of that replacement and adding some clean out ports on that leachate line along behind the water treatment plant. And so I feel like we're currently trying to field, locate, and verify all the existing utilities along that old state road that runs behind the water treatment plant to make sure that we keep proper clearance and there's an adequate room. So there'll be some discussions possibly at a later date on, easement, that we'll be needing to grant to them once we determine the final route for that. They determine the final route for the line and ensuring that they've got enough easement to dedicate. So, but at this time, they were needing to submit to the Division of Water for the primary improvement. And with that, the city has, as the utility provider has to write a letter to the division saying that we have the capacity and the ability to handle this flow. And that's what I'm needing from the council tonight, is to vote on and accept this additional flow from the Nelson County landfill so that we can move forward. They can move forward the project.
Didn't anyone have questions of Jessica on this?
Jessica, this is
Yeah, I
David
do. Yeah.
Jones.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Let me
David.
go first, Joe.
Yeah, go ahead.
Jessica, you mentioned that we were okay with taking the additional flow provided it goes to the Jerry Rowley plant or some plants. To say it went offline, what would happen then? I mean, do we have additional capacity, or what would we do then?
If the Jerry Riley plant needed to be shut down completely, we still have the ability to divert flow, that leachate flow, to the Town Creek plant. Again, they just may need to minimize the hours that the pump with this expansion could run. But I think we could still do that. But ultimately, we are in a situation where we have and obligated with just the growth of the community. You know, we can't just shut down the wastewater plant completely. You know, most communities don't have the ability to just shut down any facility once you have a portion of your community dedicated to treat. For, you know, not everybody has that flexibility to go to each point, you know, to switch the flow. So we're not designed to do that. It's just in an emergency situation, and yes, we could in a short-term temporary state, but we certainly couldn't handle that on a routine basis by any means.
How is that additional flow? How is that additional flow metered? Sorry, Jessica, did you hear me?
You're kind of technical difficulties there, but I think I understand your question to be how is their flow metered?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
They currently provide a cascade meter and a pump station on their side at the landfill. And that's how we bill them for their leachate line currently today. So there will still be mechanisms in place for us to bill based on what they send to us in the force name.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Jessica, what if development, say, of a couple of neighborhoods or something of that nature were to go out that direction? How would that affect them tying onto the sewer line, or would it?
It wouldn't.
It
Their
wouldn't.
leachate line is just for their leachate. It is not for future growth in that area. And again, that's why there's the requirement for this line to be connected to that 24. The 24-inch force main that's currently there is oversized in order to handle a lot of future growth. A 24-inch force main under pressure can handle quite a bit of flow, which I think was even rated for what the design of the plant itself can handle, which I believe is up to peak hour of 8 MGD. So we've got the capacity in that 24, and it was planned for growth.
Okay, good.
And one other thing, Jessica shared with me, fiscal court is using HDR engineering to do their design. And HDR has done a significant amount of design work for us. Matter of fact, the current upgrade we're doing, they designed it. So they're very familiar with our system and capacity. So I think that's a positive in this situation. They're using the same company. Any other questions of Jessica on this one? If not, then I'd ask for a motion to approve the request from Nelson Fiscal Court for the service of their new leachate line, taking their leachate from their landfill to our sewer plant, the Jerry Riley plant.
So moved,
I'll
Mayor.
make that motion, Mayor.
Okay, we have a
Sorry, Mayor.
motion of Councilwoman Hart. Is there a second?
Second that, Mayor.
Second by Councilman Hibbs. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed, like sign? Motion is carried. All right, speaking of the Jerry Wiley plant, we've got a change order request on this lagoon liner replacement. So Jessica, you're still on.
All right, on deck. We actually did a final walkthrough of the liner project. I believe it was last week, and that project is actually, even though it took us months and months to actually clean the floods, the liner replacement itself, once we got the proper material in the bottom and the walls of the lagoon, the liner went in really, really well. All of the joints, well testing, all tested double what their specification requirements are. So I think we ended up with a really good quality project at the end. This change order is just a really small section of under drain pipe in order for that we created to help prevent any groundwater from running up under the liner and developing between the liner and the lagoon walls, banks. And in order to actually daylight the ditch, they needed to run about 120 linear feet more of that under drain daylight into the ditch line. I think the field condition was a little different. We were using the original design plans for those piping and so forth. So this is just the cost of that additional installing that pipe. I invite you guys to come out and take a look it's a good social distancing field trip if you're ever interested, but there's actually water back in the lagoon. But this finishes out that project for the lagoon liner, and I would ask that the council approve this and call it a job complete.
Excuse me. Any questions of Jessica on this particular change order? Okay, if not, I would ask for a motion then to approve this change order. I think it's $3,000 for 120 linear feet of 4-inch under drain piping.
I'll make that motion, Mayor. It's David.
All right, motion by Councilman Dones. Is there a second?
I'll second that, Mayor.
So
Joe.
second by Councilman Buckman. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed,
Aye.
like sign. Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
think, Jessica, I think we're going to table this bid tab on American Greeting. Is that correct?
That's correct. We're still trying to establish appropriate references for the bidders and make sure that before we bring that recommendation to the council, that we're comfortable with the contractor that we're recommending first. So.
Okay. We'll take that up at the next meeting then. Thank you. Okay, the next item on our agenda is a change order on our rec center renovation project. So I would like to ask Daniel Jeffries to kind of give us some background on that. And he and I and Councilman Dones met with the contractor, I think it was last week, to discuss this. It's a little unusual, but we think we have a handle on why it's being requested, but we want the council's approval.
Good evening. This project for this change order in particular is for the subfloor repair. This project started mid-July, and it was $21,000 some dollars quoted for the repairs, and the contractor went down prior and investigated, went underneath the crawl space from one side to the other, took pictures that I believe you all have copies of there of the condition of the different areas underneath the gym, and then they started repairing the gym from there. At that point, they're noticing that there's quite a bit of damage. They think that all the joists are bad. At that point, they ended up going and replacing all the joists under the entire front of the building, which they didn't plan on, obviously. But that's what ended up happening. Now, at the conclusion of the project, the contractor comes up and hands me or emails me a change order wanting to go back and add cost to the project once it's pretty much at completion. So I wasn't very comfortable with that. I talked to the mayor and we talked to the recreation committee, and kind of getting some different opinions. The mayor gave me a figure to approach him with, and he didn't seem to want to discuss it. So we got to the point where the mayor, Councilman Dones, and I met with him, and we still haven't had any resolutions. So he wanted to see if he could take it to the council for their view on it.
Okay, David, you want to share some of our discussion and some of our thinking on this since our meeting with the contractor last week?
Sure, Mayor. The initial project, I think we've, as a council, we've run on issues like this before where, change orders have come up, in the middle of projects because of undiscovered items that have run costs up. Most of those can be explained, due to the nature of these items being undiscoverable at the time. And the mayor has correctly reasoned, on these particular items that, it would have cost us that money. It would have cost us this anyway. So, but this case, the contractor came to us late in the game, basically at the end of the project, and asking for this change order for these floor joists that had been discovered to be rotted after they got into the project. I tended to rely heavily on a scope of work. When you look at a contractor's contract, and this particular scope of work, how it was written, I'm sure the council has had opportunity to go over that, was not very clear as to what was actually going to be included in work. And that's particularly where I had a problem with the size of the change order, just simply because, that's almost 60% of the original quote. So the mayor and I both, talked with the contractor and Daniel, and, extensively. We had a pretty long meeting about it and offered him several different ways and we failed to reach. And that's why it's before the change order and the amount of labor involved. The mayor and I both felt like that it was excessive. So if the council has any questions in particular, about the job, and I'm welcome to take any questions that you may have so we can try to work through this.
David, let me add something. You kind of broke up there early in your discussion. I think what David was saying, that some of this work was in fact very difficult to inspect and see it till you got into it because of how it was tied into the foundation. So it wasn't really that visible. Had that, I think David's point was, had that been more visible, the original bid would have been higher because a lot more of the joists turned out to be rotted and needed to be replaced than what you could visibly see from those photos and from his own inspection. The point of that other just part of David's thing was the scope of work does identify replacing and rotted joists, etc. But there's no numbers. It's a very general scope of work. So, I think that's where Daniel was coming from. It looks like the scope of work called for this, but I think we do agree there is probably something here that does justify some additional cost. Certainly the materials were definitely used. It's now a question of I think he indicated to us that it added about 6 weeks to the work. And sometimes he said there was 2 people on the job, sometimes 1, sometimes 3. So it's really hard to ascertain how many more hours. His change order doesn't get into that. So that's where the debate is with us, is that we think the materials are definitely in line, but we think $10,000 worth of labor is not in line. So now just open it up for any other questions, and hopefully David and Daniel and I could answer them.
Mayor, I have a question, please.
Yes, ma'am.
So am I understanding that this invoice was not presented to us until after the fact, after all the work was done, that he didn't make us aware of this when he discovered it?
Daniel, you want to give some of that background?
Sure. They once they started opening up the floor, they knew, yeah, these are bad, and they had to open it up in segments, of course, to see what was bad. And then this change order came September 20th. This is the date I have when he was emailed to me. At that point, most all the work was done. There was, if any, joist, might have been a few joists left to put in at that point in time. But that's what he's saying is the delay in it. He wanted to have the floor all open so he knew the condition of all the materials all the way across the gym versus just going off of a piece of it.
So Daniel, he didn't discuss this with you before he did the work?
When we talked about it a couple of times during, because he said, yes, there's a lot more work involved. And I agree. Yeah, there's more work involved. And, every time that we discussed anything, he never gave me any figures or anything of that nature. If he said anything to that point, I said, this is what you quoted me. This is what I had to work with. This is what I asked the council for. This is what we had to work with, is what I stated. Anytime we had any discussion of anything, possibly needing to cost more or anything of that nature. But, there was no definite figures discussed or anything really until right before the change order came.
Would he have access all the way, when he went under there, would he have had access all the way to the walls to be able to see those joists and how they were put in the wall type of thing? Could he have seen that when he was under that house, under that building? And did he
could see him go into the wall, okay. But they're inside the block.
Right.
They're bricked around each one, so you can see inside the block portion of the 2x12s. But you could see where they make connection because it's been repaired before. Yeah. In initial discussions, he was going to reinforce all the way across the gym because there was a piece of angle iron placed there prior, and that was supposed to support the joist from underneath if there was a failure with it where it's tucked into the walls. And that was placed an inch or so low, so he was going to have to raise that up or replace it, one or the other, and he was going to do that all the way across because you could tell just walking in the bathrooms, the halls, you could see the way they rolled on the floor itself where they met the wall. They went up and down from the damage, and you couldn't tell all the way across, like the office areas and things of that nature weren't, but in different spots you could see that portion of it. But you could see in the pictures there we're attached to that email, it shows what he was looking at down there, and you can see where you'll see the angle iron actually in one picture showing where it's away from the joist.
Mm-hmm. So is he the only guy that we got a quote from? Is this the only?
Yeah, that's the only one that I could get to even take a look at it.
Okay.
Daniel, this is Coach Rowe.
Yes, sir.
Change orders are not uncommon as far as the council receiving them. But where I'm uncomfortable is the labor. There's no breakout of the labor. You know, what days it worked, how many hours it worked, things of that nature, and that's where I'm uncomfortable.
Mhm.
If you look at, I'm sorry.
I was just going to point. I agree with that statement. You know, to actually put the numbers down to see what the actual costs are. I've never seen anything to that effect.
I'm looking at the conditions in the scope of work, you know, and it says this work will be performed in accordance with any specification submitted. Any deviation from scope involving extra costs will be executed upon authorization by the customer and will be an extra charge over and above the bid price. But it doesn't sound like we authorized it. You know, he talked about it, but he never gave us any figures.
Correct. Until the change order, there was no numbers discussed.
Right.
Hey, Daniel, it's Frank. I got a question for you if you don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
These pictures that we got in our packet here, were they taken by Mr. Ford in February?
Yes.
Okay. So, I mean, I can understand you could have some change orders where you, like, say, open that floor up and see a little bit of difference there. But I mean, I'm looking at these. He had a pretty detailed pictures. I mean, the whole packet is a pretty detailed look at what he had to work with. Don't you agree?
Yeah. I mean, he was in depth down there, of course, from seeing the whole part there. I mean, I do agree there is that part where it goes inside the bricks that you can't necessarily see or tell the condition inside the wall, but you know, everything else, of course, yeah, he was, you know, he was able to photograph it, so he was there. So
I can understand some of it, but it seems like I'm like the rest of you guys. It seems like it's a little excessive and a little general. I agree. I think it needs to be broken down by Mr. Ford a little bit better.
Well, during our discussions with the mayor and I, with Mr. Ford, you know, we talked about that extensively, and I looked at the pictures also. I determined that it would be very difficult, you know, and I'm not taking up for Mr. Ford, but it would have been very difficult to see the end rot on those joists from that vantage point. The pictures that were shown, I think that he pointed out that there were multiple repairs done before, and then when they did actually uncover a large portion of the floor, there were, you know, a lot of improper repairs that had been done to the joist over the years, you know, using floor jacks and bricks and loose block and that kind of thing, that apparently, you know, according to him, weren't discoverable from that vantage point. So without me crawling underneath the floor to see what he could have seen, it's hard to make that judgment call. But from the pictures and what I could see, I can see where the end rot on the joist would have been undiscoverable until you remove the flooring from the top. Now, that being said, you know, I still think that there's a lot of unknowns as far as the scope of work, as the mayor had alluded to. It's kind of broad, but I believe that work that was uncovered, you know, that there would have been an additional cost to the city. I'm not sure that the complete change order is warranted, that full amount, but I do believe that there would have been additional costs that would have been discovered after the fact.
You know, guys, in old construction, we all know that you're going to always uncover something that you can't see. It just happens. And, you know, I can empathize with him on this because there's always something, like I said, that shows up that you could not have seen. I would like to see like a detailed sheet myself of his time and so forth as to what he charged for his time and that type of thing, just before we approve something.
I agree, Joe.
Okay. Any other discussion? I think unless someone has a specific number, that might be some better method to see if he could break down how many man hours he had and how many people he had involved, and a more accurate cost, and perhaps that would be a better way for us to decide how much, if any, to accept of the change order request. Is that kind of the consensus of you all as a group?
Yes, Mayor.
That's my position, Mayor. This is Coach Rowe.
I agree, sir.
Joe, David?
Yeah, I'm fine with that, Mayor. I am. Yes. I think he's entitled to some money because I think there are unseen things there. And, but I would like to see it broken down personally. Yes.
Okay.
Just to see.
I agree.
All right,
I agree,
David?
Mayor. I agree with Joe on that. I think there are some additional monies that are warranted that would be that I believe that he's entitled to. But I think that is a good idea by the rest of the council to see if we could get some type of a breakdown to see where he arrived at that figure.
Yeah, he gave us the invoices on the materials, but we don't really have any detail other than a lump sum number on the labor. So I think, I don't know if we need a formal vote, Audrey, to table the request and ask for more information, or just instruct Daniel to request a more detail on the labor related to this change order.
I think since we had it on the agenda tonight, it would be appropriate for someone to make a motion to table it. And if it's seconded, then go ahead and table it till the next meeting, since we've discussed it
Okay.
tonight and it was on the
I'll make
agenda.
that motion. I'm sorry, council. I'll make that motion, Mayor, that we
I have a
table.
motion by Councilman Williams to table it and requested more detail on the for the change order request. Is there a second?
I'll
I'll
second that,
second
Mayor.
that motion, Mayor.
All right, we have a second by Councilman Buckman. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. All opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, thank you, guys. Thank you, Daniel, for your, and then I'll leave that up to you to go back to Mr. Ford to get that detail that the council is requesting.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it.
Okay. All right, we'll
Mayor,
move on. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, may I ask a question? This is probably geared more towards Aaron, but in situations like this, Redbird, whatever supplies they bought, they paid sales tax on. And of course, as a government entity, we don't pay sales tax. It's a very small piece of the pie in this case. But is there a way, or is it a practice to have the materials charged to the city so that we're not paying that sales tax, or does it need to go to the vendor?
I think we handle it most of the time through the vendor in the whole bid process, but as you remember recently, when the bid came in pretty high going in, we asked for some value engineering on our public works building, but normally it's sort of on a case-by-case basis, I guess. That's my memory on it, unless Jessica or Aaron has a different perspective on that.
I can speak to that if you'd like, Mayor. Generally in the bidding process, because we are soliciting for open bids, and we generally choose the low bid contractor and we follow those procurement laws, unless that becomes part of their bid, so therefore the contractor is the one purchasing the materials, scheduling all the delivery of the materials. We oftentimes pay stored materials if there's like a lot of very expensive items that they're having to have that cash flow up front. But generally, unless we are having, just a open bid for material only, we generally don't receive that sales tax benefit unless, again, it was just that the public works building, we did try to do that because there was like a couple of big items we could pull out, and the contractor was willing to bid it in that way.
Okay.
That way you're not dealing with 25 different vendors trying to get sales tax on every bolt, fitting, wire, everything that could be associated with a job for a utility project or something. And oftentimes they're getting, if it's a big contract, they're going to get discounts because
Contract price.
they're getting a contract price. And if they're a really good buyer for a particular vendor, they're going to get some good pricing if they always use like Ferguson parts or something like that. So we sometimes can see just as good of a benefit by going through that bidding process. But oftentimes if we're just buying things internally, we are tax exempt and we don't have to, get that savings.
Okay, thank you. Like I said, it was a small piece of the pie.
Okay. Anything else? If we've already had a motion and it's been carried, we'll then move on to our HRB recommendations, and I'll ask Audrey Hayden to read the summary, and I think we may have a recusal possibly. Is
Yes,
there
sir.
any
One.
Yeah,
Yeah, me. Yes, sir. 150, number 150.
right. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Audrey?
Thank you, Mayor. COA 2146, Brown and Cheek Properties LLC, applicants owners request to remove a dead tree at 442 East Stephen Foster Avenue. Recommendation: approval to remove the proposed tree with the following conditions. Conditions: the replacement tree cannot be less than 20 feet in height once grown to maturity, and it must be a hardwood tree that will be staff approved. COA 2149, Mary Florence Barnes, applicant owner requests to remove a tree and replace it at 109 North 5th Street. Recommendation: approval to remove the proposed tree with the following conditions. Conditions: the one tree nearest the home is approved to be removed and to be replaced with another tree that will be staff approved. The second tree can also be removed at a later date upon staff approval. COA 2156, Town and Country Bank, applicants owners request to remove 5 crab trees and replace them with eastern redbud trees at 201 North 3rd Street. Recommendation: approval to remove the proposed trees as presented in the application. COA 2147, Elizabeth Seeger, applicant owner requests to install/keep a fence that was installed without HRB approval at 208 West Flagey. Recommendation: approval to install the proposed fence with the following conditions. Conditions: the fence location must be approved by planning and zoning. The City of Bardstown engineer, Jessica Filiatru, will also give approval, and the stain color will be staff approved. COA 2150, McLean House Condo LLC. Applicant owner requests to add a carport at 105 East Stephen Foster Avenue. Recommendation: approval to install the proposed carport with the following conditions. Conditions: planning and zoning will approve the final site plan before construction can begin. COA 2151, Jamie Haslam, Patrick Whelan, applicants/owners request to construct a new detached screened-in porch structure at 111 East John Fitch Avenue. Recommendation: approval to construct the detached screened-in porch with the following conditions. Conditions: the site plan must be approved by planning and zoning before construction begins. COA 2152, Jamie Haslam, Patrick Whelan, applicants owners request to construct a new detached screened-in porch structure with siding and paint at 111 East John Fitch Avenue. Recommendation: approval to install the detached screened-in porch structure with the proposed siding and paint colors. COA 2153, Jamie Haslam, applicants owners request to construct a new detached screened-in porch structure with a roof, chimney, and fireplace at 111 East John Fitch Avenue. Recommendation: approval to construct a new detached screened-in porch structure with the proposed roof, chimney, and fireplace. COA 2154, Patrick Whelan, applicants owners request to construct a new detached screened-in porch structure with a foundation and screen doors at 111 East John Fitch Avenue. Recommendation: approval to construct a new detached screened-in porch structure with the proposed foundation and screen doors. COA 2155, Jamie Haslam, Patrick Whelan, applicants owners request to remove a tree at 111 East John Fitch Avenue. Recommendation: approval to remove the proposed tree with the following conditions. Conditions: the homeowners will research appropriate trees to go back in the front and the backyard and receive staff approval for that in the spring of 2021. Provisional approval, staff approved. COA 2148, Jim Hagan, applicant under request to remove 3 trees at 207 North 4th Street. Recommendation, approval to remove the proposed trees with the following conditions. Conditions, 3 trees will be planted back and they will be staff approved. COA 2157, Margaret Harden, applicant under request to pour concrete to make a patio and remove the deck at 207 North 4th Street. Recommendation, approval to pour concrete to create the proposed patio and to remove the deck.
All right. Thank you, Audrey. I guess we could put all of these with the exception of COA 2150 in a motion for approval per the recommendation of the Historic Review Board, and have the other one separate, so Councilman Buckman can be recuse himself on that one. Does that sound right? Okay.
I think that's appropriate, Mayor, so long as we make a note of all those conditions as applied to the recommendations.
All right, thank you. All right, I would ask for a motion then to approve all of the COAs presented this evening with conditions for a vote of approval with the exception of COA 20-150. And we'll take that up in a separate motion.
I'll make that motion, Mayor Frank.
All right, a motion by Councilman Hibbs.
I'll second it, Mayor.
I think that sounds like Councilman Shekels.
That'd be me.
All right. All right, we have a motion and a second for all of these COAs recommendations for approval from the HRB. Is there any other discussion?
Mayor, I'd like to make one comment about some of these conditions. And
right.
three out of the 4 that stated that planning and zoning will approve the final site plan before construction can begin. Well, I'm pretty sure I listened to all the meeting and everybody went through that channel. For some reason, that didn't get to Riche on time, but I just wanted noted that everybody, I think, went through the proper procedure there. It doesn't look like it, but we did. How about that?
Okay.
Just wanted that to be noted.
All right, thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed. That motion's carried. Now we need a motion then for COA 20-150, the McLean House Condo LLC with the conditions. And Councilman Buckman will recuse from this vote.
So move, Mayor. Coach Rowe.
Right. We have a motion by Councilman Williams. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Shekels. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye, and the motion includes conditions.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion's carried. Let the record show that Councilman Buckman abstained, or excuse me, recused himself. All right, we'll move on then. Next item on the agenda is, we'll get to it. Everyone had a chance to review the minutes of the last meeting on November 10th. If there's no additions or changes, we can approve them by unanimous consent. All right. We'll move on. I'll call on our CFO, Aaron Bowles, to give us an overview of our October 20 financial statement.
Thank you, Mayor. Everything was pretty quiet during the month of October. As you pull up the document I've prepared for you all, I changed the format just to discuss all of the general fund revenue and expense, and then all of the combined utilities revenue and expense. So we'll get right into it. General fund revenue for the month came in about $785,000. 59% of that came from occupational license fees, and another 22%, or $175,000, came from an accrual of our bank deposit taxes. So again, that's.
You might need to speak up just a little, Aaron.
Okay. The 59% was occupational revenues, about $456,000. $174,000 was accrual for bank deposit tax revenue. Net profits, they were down just a little bit this month, and they've kind of really trailed off, and we've received just a little bit in November, but on this line item, I was expecting to see about $500,000 in carryover from 2019 into this year, but it looks like we're going to be closer into the about 270 if we don't receive anything after November. Even with that shortfall, year-to-date revenue in the general fund remains strong. It's running at 42% of budget. For the year, we're at $4.7 million. Those net profits will pick back up again in January as the due date of April 15th will cause those to come back in. So again, depending upon how this year has affected our local businesses with their revenues, we should start seeing some money from that. And it's a little bit hard. Prior to this year, we didn't break out net profits. It was all lump summed into occupational license fees. And our software doesn't really give me a breakout of how much is received at what time. So I can usually see by year what we'll get, but it doesn't tell me how much was received in a prior year, because although it's due April 15th, we have many corporations that will apply for extensions just because the corporate taxes aren't officially due until mid-October. So they'll file an extension with us also to extend out based upon that filing date. On the expense side, we're about $960,000 for the month. Salaries accounted for 31%. A few other items of note. The fire department bought a new, beautiful heavy-duty truck. It was budgeted at just under, or it came in at just under $55,000. Police department purchased a new vehicle, $26,000, and the pool had a budgeted new covered area that they purchased for that location. I believe the other one was just too small for the needs and the traffic that was coming to the pool. So hopefully we'll be able to utilize that next year. And just below that, I created a new chart. And I'm going to try to include some new charts and graphs each month, just detailing out different aspects of each department or each fund, just things that I think you guys might want to see. If you guys have anything you want to see in particular, any specific items, please let me know. I'll be glad to work something up and present it each month or in a specific month. So the charts included with this month, I just wanted to show you all of the year-to-date expenditures or revenues, what department contributes what into that total number. So year-to-date expenditures in the general fund were at $3.7 million. As you can see, police and street eat up a large majority of that. Just wanted to show you all that. Again, if you guys have anything you want to see in particular, let me know. I didn't do a chart on the general fund revenue just because 95% of the revenue of the general fund sits in the finance department. So it's not really a helpful chart for you all. Moving on to the combined utilities, revenue for the month was $3.6 million. 88% of that came from general service charges throughout the utilities. Not really much else happened of note revenue-wise in the combined utilities. Year-to-date revenue, $12.3 million, or 27% of the budget. As you can see, electric and cable departments in that graph are the highest revenue generators for the combined utilities. Sewer revenue is slightly higher than water due to KIA loan disbursements that come in throughout the year for the ongoing projects, because taking those out, water actually generates a little bit more revenue than sewer does. So they're about $250,000 more in service charges in the water department. On the expense side, combined utilities saw $2.4 million in expenses. Again, not too much happening here. The continued construction projects in sewer were accounted for quite a bit of this, the expenditures for the month. Cable affiliate fees, those normal charges, that's a monthly charge for us, and salaries kind of rounded that out. On the expenditure side, you can see that by that chart, if you compare it back to the revenue, it looks very similar. Again, sewer is elevated here because of the ongoing construction projects with the Jerry Riley Lagoon liner and clean out, and the Rowan Creek truck line. So, lastly, on this report, cash and investments, we had a good month. We overall cash balances increased $2.2 million. A lot of that came from, if you remember, last month we booked the property tax revenue in September, but throughout October we're actually receiving that cash as people pay their bills. I think it was $1.6 million we took in last month in property taxes. Investments increased $37,000 to $7.6 million. We had a quarterly interest payment, and I broke down what areas, what funds saw the interest income for the month. And that's it on that. Other news in the finance department, my portion of the FY20 audit's over with. I've got just a couple more accounts that I have to look at, but pretty much everything is now in the hands of the auditor. It's been hectic but rewarding. It's been a really good learning experience for me, as I've been forced to dive deeper into the balance sheet accounts and really figure out what makes each one up. We hope to have a final report presented in January. We have a February cutoff that we have to meet. So hopefully in January we'll get that presented and approved. And on another note, yesterday I received a check for $494,397 for our second disbursement of our CARES Act funds. We have approximately $70,000 left that I'll have to request for disbursement in December. If anyone has any questions, let me know.
Aaron, one thing I would add to what Aaron's report, if you all recall, back when we were going through the budget process, you know, it's a very unusual budget to try to prepare, particularly with the impact of COVID and how it impacts our revenue stream, the general fund, as well as combined utilities. And if you all may recall, we had some discussions about that, and that really was almost sort of like a provisional budget beginning, that we would take a hard look. We said at that point we would take a hard look at where we stood in January, just to see kind of a 6-month trend would be much more useful in evaluating the impact on COVID as it relates to our revenue and expenses. So we've got a couple more months to go before we'll, I think, still know the true impact of how this is impacting our revenue and expenses, and then make the necessary changes to our budget going forward, what amendments we might need to make and any perhaps changes.
Yeah.
We'll
I
know
plan-
more then.
I'll plan to hopefully have an in-depth look at that either at January's meeting or it might be into February. If there are significant changes, I'll end up probably proposing an amendment, budget amendment there mid-year. And then we'll do another amendment towards the end of the year, where typically we just do the one amendment right there at the end of the year. But we may go ahead and do two, just to, especially to account for these CARES Act funds, and we want to budget those down into other departments. And if anybody's particularly struggling or needing to make additional purchases of something, but we'll be able to take a look at that in more detail.
And just the good news is that kind of a simple thing is that the revenues are exceeding expenses in both the general fund as well as the combined utilities. So we're still tracking, even though we've had a negative impact on some areas of revenue, we're still tracking in a positive manner. So that's good. Do any of the council members, do you all have any questions of Aaron on his financial report for October?
I like his little pie chart that he put out there. The visual that he put out with the pie chart kind of gives us a little more in-depth look at the revenues and expenses from the combined utilities and the general fund. That's a good visual. I appreciate that.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Bill. All right, any other questions? If we don't have any other questions, we'll move on. If none, we'll move on to reports of staff and committees. I'd like to call on Major Joe Seeley from the Bardstown Police Department to give us an update on a recent investigation and charges on a bust, a major drug bust, and some ancillary charges that came as a result of that bust, which is a little unusual. So Major Seeley, if you would you mind giving us kind of a report out on that, please?
Mayor, I just got a text from him asking me if I was getting bumped out of the meeting, so he might have got bumped out.
Okay, sorry. Then maybe we'll call on him in a minute to get back to us. I'll switch then over to Nahom. If he's going to give us there you are, Joe. Can you hear us all right? Do you want to go ahead and give your...
Yes, no, yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Well, I keep getting bumped out of this, so if I get bumped out again, I'll get back in. So good evening, everybody. So on March 15th, Bardstown Police responded to residents on Fernley Circle. I'll leave out some of the details specifically because it is an ongoing court case, and just try to protect the victim's identity at this point. Some of that will probably come out throughout this case that goes to court. I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you. Yeah, we can hear you.
We hear you, Joe.
Maybe he's not hearing us.
Hey, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I got you now. Yeah, there you are. I'm having a terrible connection. Chief Mattingly, if you can't hear me anymore, make sure you'll text me. All right, so when we responded to that, there was on a death investigation, and through that investigation, our narcotics unit found that the victim had overdosed, and under a new KRS law last year, I believe it was new, manslaughter 2 is the appropriate charge for somebody involved providing Schedule 1 or Schedule 2 to a person that dies as a result of that.
Well, let's give him a second, hopefully to get back in.
It looked like it kicked him again.
We'll give him a second, see if he can get back on. Okay, Joe, we see you again.
All right, can you hear me again?
Yes.
Oh. All right, so I'm not sure where you heard me, but we responded to Fernley Circle on a death investigation. Our narcotics unit was involved in the investigation. They worked with Joe Ballard at the Commonwealth Attorney's Office, and they were able to get an indictment for 3 individuals who were, in essence, in proximate cause of the victim with dying. And they were Robert Girdley, LeBron Maddox, and Thomas Alvey were all charged with manslaughter 2, along with some other drug charges. What's interesting about this case, I think there's only been a couple other agencies that use this part of manslaughter 2 because it's a relatively new. I believe it was last year, come out of the legislature last year. So it really helps with those that are providing narcotics to those that end up overdosing and dying from that. So the case, they were arrested on Sunday, I believe, and are currently will have to go through the court process and hopefully get a conviction out of it. Anybody have any questions that I can answer, if you can hear me?
Great work, Joe.
Yes, good work by the narcotics unit to, a lot of times we hear of an overdose, we just find someone who's deceased. We rarely able to put the rest of the pieces together as to who were the suppliers and bring an indictment to them. So this is good work. All right, thank you, Major. We'll move on then. I'm going to call on the home of the eel, give a report, just an update on our negotiations for our next 3-year rates with our major broadcast stations on our cable TV lineup.
Thank you, Mayor. So every 3 years, we renew our negotiations or our contract for the basically the local broadcasting station. Those include some of the national networks they carry, such as ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox. So most of these are Louisville broadcast stations that we carry. So we're currently, Cable Department and the Mayor are negotiating a lot of different terms, but the primary focus is the monthly cost for our subscribers. And so that's kind of where we're at. This typically, since 2008, these every 3-year negotiations end up with increase in programming cost. And so, as you all know, most of our packages are basically made of programming costs for each channel. And so these are typically our pass-through from the networks that end up being reflected on the customer's bill. But we're in the beginning stages of negotiating those terms. But as we try to maintain the programming that everybody wants, and at the same time keep the cost down, that's where the challenge lies. But I wanted to update everybody. That's going on right now.
And this primarily is with their, the major networks, your ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, and a few of the affiliates that are with them. So they try to play hardball. I know Bill Shekels has been through this before. It's always kind of a tough negotiating period when you deal with them, but I am cautiously optimistic that we're going to get a reasonable proposal worked out, because seems like we're a little bit ahead of the game this year than we have been in past years. So just wanted to give you all an update, and stay tuned that Nahome and I are in discussions weekly with these major providers. So hopefully we'll get it done. We won't be on the phone with them at December 31st like we have been in years in the past, because it has to be done before the new year. So I think we are moving, it seems like, reasonably well at this stage. So stay tuned. Okay. Anybody have any questions in Nahome? I mean, some of this, obviously is kind of privileged information until we get a formal negotiation done. So we can't disclose numbers until we finish the negotiations. All right.
Strong, be strong, Mayor.
Well, you taught me all I know, Bill.
Well, I remember I fought them tooth and nail, so you be strong with them, because they'll drag you out.
Oh, and I've been on that phone with them on December 30th and 31st before. I'm hoping to put it to bed way before that this time around.
Okay. Good
All
luck.
right. Thank you. The next item, the resolution is kind of self-explanatory on the liquor license quota. We have every city and county has a finite amount of liquor licenses, and I'll probably rely on Audrey to speak to some of this, but we have not had any licenses available for quite some time. And we have had requests. A good example is your franchise drugstores, for instance. They now have package licenses, and some of our locally owned private non-franchised drugstores, or not necessarily non-franchised, but locally owned, not major corporate owned drugstores, they would like the same opportunity as their competitor, but we don't have any additional licenses available. So we thought there would be a way to request, and we checked in with the ABC, and there is in fact a way to request. You don't have to wait every 10 years for a census number to change, and because they are somewhat tied to your population, the number of licenses available in the city and the county, even though the census numbers will be coming out sometime in the next several months. The census just completed in September. But there is a process that you can go to in between census periods where you can make a formal application. And so that's what this resolution is about, because we do have some other businesses that are tied to the Bourbon Trail type of traffic and so forth that would like to have a package license. So Audrey, if you'd like to pick it up from there about the process and so forth.
Sure, Mayor. So this is a process that hasn't been used terribly often because it came out of some litigation between the city of Somerset and ABC several years ago. And then the statute was adopted by the legislature sometime after that to lay out this process. So basically, as the mayor said, every 10 years, when our population is counted, then the state ABC board allocates licenses based on the population demographic. So currently we have 12, which are all being used in the city. Based on our population, we're allowed to request up to 8 additional licenses, which I think we intend to ask for those. Not that we necessarily need them all right now, but I think we'd much rather have more than we need right now than be in the same position in a couple of years, because you're only allowed to petition every 3 years. And I've been working already with Kim Houston and some folks at tourism, trying to get together some information because there's a list of factors that the board considers. Tourist attractions and the number of visitors that come to your area, the population served by the community, not just the community, the population that lives there, other factors that make it unique. And of course, we feel like, the tourist destination here and being on the Bourbon Trail and a lot of places here that may want or need package licenses as the area has grown significantly since, I think, 2010, all weigh in our favor. And I feel pretty good about us getting additional licenses. Sort of the two preliminary steps we have to take is we have to have a resolution adopted by the city council authorizing us to seek the additional licenses. Then we also have to put a notice in the newspaper letting the public know that we intend to seek the additional licenses. And then from there, the mayor and I will be working on getting together all the information to present to the board. And basically the process is once we submit all the information to them, within 30 days, they either decide that they're going to give us the additional licenses, or if they tell us we can't have the additional licenses, then we can request that we can appeal it and request a hearing to present any additional evidence or bring witnesses, to present testimony on those issues. So that's what this resolution is. So Mayor, I don't know if the council has any questions, or I can read the resolution if you're ready for me to. And these are retail package, just to be clear. So this is to be able to sell liquor or alcoholic beverages that are packaged for retail. So this is not by the drink or anything like that.
Audrey, like Kroger, do they have like one big license, or do they also have to have a license for Bardstown or Walgreens, that kind of places? Is that part of our 12?
Yes.
So, and to be clear, there are some additional ones that the county has also. And so some of those, I think, don't quote me on this, but I think those could be issued within the city limits also. Is that right?
Yeah, I think the county has a limit. We have a limit.
Okay.
But Joe, to your question, I think you're correct. The package store at Kroger's has a package license that's local, as does Walgreens nearby. Then they also, of course, Kroger's also has a malt beverage license for beer.
So they're part of our 12.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I didn't need it for he's getting taxes. Oh, no.
If I would then, Audrey, if you would go ahead and read the resolution. Oh, excuse me, I need someone to introduce it, and then we'll read it and have a vote on it, please.
Mayor, if I may be in order, I'd like to introduce Resolution R 2020-09, a resolution approving and authorizing the city of Bardstown to petition the State Alcoholic Beverage Control Board for an increase in its quota licenses, and ask our city attorney to read it in summary, please.
Thank you.
Resolution R 2020-09, a resolution approving and authorizing the city of Bardstown to petition the State Alcoholic Beverage Control Board for an increase in its quota licenses. Whereas the city of Bardstown, Kentucky is currently allocated 12 quota retail package licenses based on population demographics. And whereas the city of Bardstown has issued all 12 of those quota licenses to local retailers. And whereas there has been significant growth and economic development within the city of Bardstown since the last time quota licenses were allocated. And whereas the demand for quota licenses currently exceeds the number of licenses allocated to the city. And whereas the city of Bardstown is the bourbon capital of the world and thousands of tourists visit Bardstown each year while touring the Kentucky Bourbon Trail. And whereas to request an increased number of quota licenses, the city of Bardstown must petition the State Alcoholic Beverage Control Board pursuant to KRS 241-069. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Bardstown, Kentucky as follows. Section 1, that is required by KRS 242-021. City Council of the City of Bardstown authorizes the City of Bardstown to petition the State Alcoholic Beverage Control Board for an increase in the number of quota licenses allocated to the city. Section 2, that the mayor and city clerk of the City of Bardstown be and hereby are authorized, directed, and empowered to take steps necessary and to otherwise act on behalf of the City of Bardstown to make said petition. Section 3, that this resolution shall take effect at the earliest time provided by law.
Okay, thank you, Audrey. If I could, then I would ask for a motion that we adopt resolution R 2020-09.
So moved, Mayor.
I have a motion by Councilwoman Hart. Is there a second?
I'll second, Mayor.
I think there was a tie there. Councilman Shekels, I think. Did you second that?
I did, but I'll see to Councilman
Hibbs?
Hibbs if he
All right, we
wants
have a
to.
second by Councilman Hibbs in. Any other discussion?
Mayor, I have one question, and maybe for Audrey. This is David. Audrey, I feel like I may need to abstain from this, although it is a resolution. I'm involved in a business that may or may not benefit from this resolution.
Sure. I mean, sure. I think you could certainly abstain if you feel comfortable doing that.
I do, if you think it's the right thing to do, yes.
Well, I think we're all hoping to get. We all need more licenses generally, but certainly I understand that you may benefit if we do get them. So I think it would be appropriate if you want to abstain.
And I would like to abstain then, Mayor.
All right, thank you, David. Thank you, Audrey. All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign, and let the record show that Councilman Dones abstained from the vote. All right. The next item on the agenda, Jessica, are you still with us on this KIA supplemental assistant loan?
Yes, I'm here.
All right.
Sorry, I had to find my window and mute. This is just the formality of the paperwork to enter into the resolutions to get the loan executed. I believe these loan documents have already come to the council for the application process, for the mayor to sign the commitment letters and those things. It's just following through those resolutions and certifications. The next step in that loan process.
Okay. If I could, then we need a resolution, need someone to introduce this resolution R 2020-10. And I'd ask for our city attorney to read that for us, please. Someone would introduce it for us.
Mayor, I'd be happy to introduce resolution R 2020-10, approving and authorizing a first supplemental assistance agreement between the city of Bardstown, Kentucky and the City Infrastructure Authority.
All right,
And
thank you.
Please ask our attorney to read the summary, please.
Thank you. All right, Audrey, would you go ahead and read the resolution, please?
Yes, Mayor. Resolution R 2020-10, a resolution approving and authorizing a first supplemental assistance agreement between the City of Bardstown, Kentucky and the Kentucky Infrastructure Authority for project number A19047. Whereas the City Council of the City of Bardstown, Kentucky has previously determined that it is in the public interest to acquire and construct certain facilities and improvements, the project, to the City of Bardstown's wastewater system. And whereas the City of Bardstown previously made application to the Kentucky Infrastructure Authority, the authority, for the purpose of providing money for the project. And whereas in order to obtain such monies, the City of Bardstown entered into an assistance agreement dated as of July 23rd, 2019 with the authority. And whereas since the date of the assistance agreement, the authority has agreed to provide additional monies for the project. And whereas to receive such additional monies for the project, it is necessary for the City of Bardstown to enter into a first supplemental assistance agreement with the authority. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Bardstown, Kentucky as follows. Section 1, that the City Council hereby approves and authorizes the first supplemental assistance agreement between the City of Bardstown and the Kentucky Infrastructure Authority regarding project number A19047, substantially in the form on file with the City of Bardstown, to provide the necessary financing to the City of Bardstown for the project. Section 2, that the mayor and the city clerk of the City of Bardstown be and hereby are authorized, directed, and empowered to execute necessary documents or agreements and to otherwise act on behalf of the City of Bardstown to effect such financing. Section 3, that this resolution shall take effect at the earliest time provided by law.
Okay, thank you, Audrey. I would ask then for a motion for us to adopt resolution R 2020-10, please.
So move, Mayor. Coach Rowe.
All right. We have a motion by Councilman Williams. Is there a second?
I'll second, Mayor.
All right, we have a second by Councilman Buckman. Or any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Thank you, Audrey. Okay, any members of the council have anything to bring before the council this evening that we haven't discussed?
I would, Mayor.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I think on behalf of the council and myself, I think we would like to congratulate you on becoming a member of the grandfatherhood this week.
Well, thank you.
So I think you said your grandson's going to call you D. Is that correct?
I think so.
Okay.
He hasn't.
Welcome
He hasn't
to
yet.
the club, Mayor.
Well, thank you. He hasn't yet, but I hope he'll get to the D. I just shortened up my name Dick for him, so he can just call me D.
Congratulations, Mayor.
Congratulations, Mayor. It's the best club ever.
Yeah,
Yes, it
I'm
is.
heading there. I'm
Certainly
heading
is.
there after this meeting, so.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Any other council members have anything to bring before the council this evening?
Mayor, I got a one little paragraph I'd like to read. Maybe I should wait till after your report. You're probably going to give a report on the COVID, I guess. Probably.
Just a
or not.
little bit.
Yeah.
I'll let you have time during that if you don't mind.
Yeah, I would.
All
I'd
right.
rather wait. Okay,
All
thank you.
right.
Mayor,
The only thing go ahead, Bill.
I just had one little quick announcement. I know the Nelson County Ministerial Association for years had provided a Thanksgiving dinner for the needy people here, and they usually serve 400 or 500 people. I know they're not doing it this year, but the women's ministry at First Baptist Church, they're providing Thanksgiving dinners from 10 to 12 on Thursday morning to anybody that's needy. They can call the church if they want to, or they can just do a drive-by on the east side of the church parking lot, and they'll be delivering dinners over there from 10 to 12 on Thursday morning. So I thought I'd just throw that out.
Well, thank you, Councilman Shekels. I just got word of that today. Up until recently, they were trying to figure out a way how to do their normal cooking all the food and delivering it like they do, but it's just almost impossible to do it on that level of numbers and not risk people being exposed in the preparation and the delivery and the receiving of the food. So it's just a difficult year for that kind of thing, but I'm thankful that your church is trying to do their part.
Well, we won't be on the level of the Ministerial Association, but for those 2 hours, they've done. The women have done quite a good job. But when it's gone, it's gone. So, but it's just and we've had quite a few requests. So, just want to let everybody know. So.
All right, thank you. I've just got a couple of things. Small Business Saturday. That promotes people to try to shop locally. That was held last Saturday here in Bardstown, and I think it was well received. And just again, want to encourage people to shop local as best they can. It might be safer, and certainly our business sector in the community has been impacted a great deal this year with COVID. So any monies that could be spent locally would certainly be a benefit to those business owners and employees that work in all those local businesses. Light Up Bardstown is kind of being changed this year a little bit. It's normally, and it's still going to start this Friday night after Thanksgiving. It's normally a major event held at the Court Square with the official lighting, and Santa Claus gets brought into town, and we can't do that because of just the numbers of people that would be gathering is unsafe. But the Chamber of Commerce and Main Street and many of our local businesses and large businesses have helped sponsor it. It's going to be known as a Light Up Bardstown, a holiday road trip. So you'll see that beginning Friday evening, actually tonight, the town is already well decorated, but more and more will come on board between now and Friday night. And there's a road map that you can access online that'll take you through town. It's North 3rd Street is highlighted, both the commercial area and residential area. East and West Stephen Foster and other areas in the community are taking part. So I would encourage people to, if they want to be safe, but enjoy the festivities and the lights, especially, and the beauty of Christmas and so forth, and all the hard work that's been put in by the chamber members and Main Street, and our electric department here at the city has done the work that they always do. And I think you're going to see some different things uptown in terms of lighting. So it's worth your time to take a ride. And of course, the Chamber and Tourism are promoting this to encourage people to come to Bardstown and make a road trip out of it and still take part in their shopping and so forth that they can do during this season. So just wanted to highlight that. And the last thing I got, yes, you know, the COVID situation here is not much improved. You know, we're still one of the many counties in the red. Our positivity rate is down somewhat this week. It's down to a little over 70 cases a day. 2 weeks ago, we were averaging like 88 cases a day, so that has improved. We haven't been in the top 6 counties in the state in the last several days, which again, 2 weeks ago, we were tracking high amount of cases, just like some of the largest counties in the state were tracking, you know, Jefferson and Fayette and Warren and so forth. But so that's positive. But as you know, the governor's executive order is in effect. It's I know it's creating a hardship on a lot of businesses and people with the schools not being in session. They're back to NTI instruction. But the executive order does have the rule of force of law, I should say, I think is the proper term. So it has to be abided by, and cities and counties, we can't override the executive order. So we have to abide by it. I do think you've seen some discussion, I think, at the legislative level that they may try to make some changes on how long those executive orders can be put in place. There's certainly reason for executive orders when there is an emergency. I think now the discussion is how long is it practical to allow those executive orders to stay in place. But that's up to the state legislature, the House and the Senate for that discussion, and the governor's office. So we are happy that people are cooperating, and we are happy that our numbers are going down somewhat, but they're still very high. So again, just encouraging everybody to mask up, be safe this Thanksgiving, you know, try to avoid those large gatherings, and just scale back this year and be safe and hopefully protect you and your family members, and we'll have a better opportunity next year. This 2020 has been a difficult year, so it's just one of those things we have to try to do to make a difference in our community. That's all I have. Is anyone else? Joe, would you like to add something?
Well, I would, Mayor. It's an article I saw, and it kind of resonated with me, and I think it might with some other members here too. If you don't mind, it's just a short paragraph. I'd like to read it.
Sure.
There was a recent survey from an online home improvement marketplace of 2,500 Americans, and it showed that 69% of the people had gotten to know their neighbors better during the pandemic. It's 65% had made an effort to be more friendly than usual. 57% say neighbors have helped to fill the void of visiting friends and family. 54% said they had at least one socially distanced gathering with neighbors, and 67% offered help of some sort to their neighbors. And I just thought that was remarkable. And I think everybody probably can relate to that a little bit. I can actually tell you my neighbors' kids' names and everything now. So, and Betty probably knows this one too, but during the October, the Association of Realtors reported that there's 26% increase in sales of homes from this time last year to this year. To think that's happening during COVID is unbelievable, really. That's all I have. Just thought they were good, interesting statistics and a little upbeat.
Yeah, thank you. We need some of that. And
Yeah.
I would add something to that as well. You know, there's been a lot of good news come out on vaccines and their you know, when they can be released and their effectiveness. And I think we're all very hopeful now. I think there's 3 different companies in the last 7 days that are asking for emergency approval through the FDA, and they're 90+ effective rate, I think, in most cases. And the article I saw today, believe it or not, that there's a company based out of Louisville that is going to have a major presence in the distribution of those vaccines around the country. And anybody that's looking for work should pay attention to this. This company is going to hire 1,200 people immediately and starting out at $20 an hour. So some people here who might be out of work as a result of COVID or for whatever reason, this might be a great opportunity, and it's all being applied online. You can go to vaccinedistributionjobs.com, vaccinedistributionjobs.com, and apply for one of the 1,200 jobs that will be based out of Louisville Distribution Center to get these vaccines out as soon as they get FDA approval. So I think that's great that we've got a local company here in Kentucky, right this close to us, that's going to be involved in hopefully employing some people that really need the work at a very good wage. So I was glad to see that article today in the news. So with that, I don't have anything else. If no one else has anything, I would ask for a motion for adjournment.
Mayor,
moved, Mayor. Oh, go ahead.
Happy Thanksgiving to everyone.
Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving.
I have a motion by Councilman Hart. I think a second by Councilman Buckman on adjournment. All in
Nope.
favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Have a safe Thanksgiving. Talk to you all in a week or two.
Good to see you.